Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to look at my Spa 24-hour qualifying performance, which took place about 4 weeks ago. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who watched the Spa 24-hour race performance video. My first video back since Spa, so if you did enjoy that, yeah, thank you for the comments, the likes. If you haven't seen it, it's in the card above. If you wanted to know how we got on in the race and what happened, and it was pretty crazy and pretty mental, then go and check that video out. But today we're purely looking at qualifying, which happened 2 days before the race. And the way qualifying works in this big race that is the Spa 24-hour, you have 4 drivers per car, and there's 4 different sessions of 15 minutes each. The average lap time from those 4 lap times you sets the grid for the race. And there's 65 cars as well, so the competition is extremely fierce. It doesn't get more, well, it's the best grid probably in GT racing and sports car racing as a whole. So it's we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and as I'm driving out the pits, I was the first of 4 drivers in the qualifying order. This was about 8 PM in the evening. The way it works is they fuel the car up for 4 sessions, so I've got 60 minutes worth of fuel in the car. Everyone gets new tyres, so I do 15 minutes, I come in, next driver in, they get new tyres, next driver in, etc, etc. So as you can see, I'm leaving the pits, and there are 40 cars in this particular session because some cars had 3 drivers, not 4, so they missed out on the first one. I had to leave space in front of me, obviously, so I could do my laps very cleanly. That's rule number 1 in any qualifying sessions, make sure you don't get blocked. And then number 2 is basically tyre preparation. So in the sim, in my most common sim, ACC, you'd go out, avoid all curbs, but drive flat out to get as much temp in the tyre as possible, so you have as much grip as possible. But it's a bit different in real life, so if I went out and did that, I'd just grain the tyre and I'd have no grip for the entirety of the session. So I go out and I get a bit of temperature in the brakes, and because I've basically started with the car from cold, you know, no one's driven the car before me, I have to get extra temp in the brakes to heat the tyres up an excessive amount, and then the guy getting in next will have a hotter car because I've already done the session before, so it's already quite warm. So yeah, over the course of the outlap, I'm basically getting temp into the core through the brakes and then weaving to get the surface up to a decent temperature. Not too hard, no scrubbing, because that can really disrupt this tyre. Apparently it's a very sensitive tyre. It's a new tyre compared to when I drove in 2020 in British GT. It's a lot more peaky, a lot more sensitive than the one I drove. So I was being extra cautious, but getting a lot of heat in the brakes, as you can see, working the brakes quite hard. And then as the outlap kind of unfolds, it's all about driving a bit harder, braking a bit harder, getting more and more temp, building it up. So at the end of the outlap, I should be basically flat out. And it gives me a good idea how much grip I have before I go into the quali lap. It's a very in the deep end situation because, you know, before this I had 9 laps of practice on race week, and then you're straight into a quali session where you do the outlap, which is quite a chilled out experience. But the quali lap, as anyone knows, qualifying is balls to the wall, you know, and in one of these cars, a GT3, yes, it's not Formula 1, but it's quick. It's really quick. So I had to really step up mentally for this and really push to get the most out of it, otherwise I would have left loads of time on the table. So starting the first quali lap, and I have no idea at this point how much grip I'm going to have going into turn 1. We're just going to suss it out when we get there. Braking around 100 meters in a straight line down to first gear, all about a late apex here. We do nick the curb on the inside, get on the power, good traction. It's a new tyre, so there's lots of grip. We've got quite a lot of fuel on board, but let me tell you, the car felt absolutely insane the whole session, and you'll see. So Eau Rouge, first lap, I did have a little lift, not a full lift, but a little blend. Well, it's quite a big blend actually, and that naturally cost me a lot of time down this straight, and you know, I clearly made the corner with no problem. But it was the first lap, and I thought the first lap's not going to be the quickest. I'll build up to it in this session. Hopefully lap 2 or 3 I'll be on it. So braking for the Lecombe chicane down to 3rd, taking the inside curb. Car looks okay over this left-hand curb. It just gets a bit unsettled, which compromises my run through this right, as you know, I had to back out the throttle and I couldn't carry the speed I thought, you know, or I wanted to. Down into this downhill right, then second gear, down the gears very quickly to get the car stopped, using the engine braking, on the power as soon as possible, get the car to the right-hand side for no name, let the car kind of roll through here onto the curb, use all the curb on the exit. And they were very hot on track limits at Eau Rouge and then Blanchemont. Everywhere else, they weren't really monitoring too much. Down to 4 for Pouon, you can see the car moving around there on the rear, very twitchy, which wasn't ideal. going on the exit of Pulon, then no problem. Into Piff Paff, where you actually have to brake a bit earlier than you think in these cars. Down to third. A bit of curve on the inside. I think I could have taken more there. And then on the exit of Piff Paff here, we just get a bit of a tank slapper and we miss the apex of the left. Compromises us quite badly there. And then for this next right, it's a tricky corner, but we do get the traction for a decent exit. Stavolo 2. It's okay. We have another blend of the throttle. We could have probably done that flat. Looking back, we could have done it flat on the first lap, but I don't want to go out and stick it in the gravel because then the session's over. I had to build up to it, and it's tough because you'll find out later on that the tyre is not the most durable. And through Blanchemont, easy flat in qualifying, even with fuel. Going to the chicane, then braking at about 125, 130 metres in a straight line down to first. Taking the curb, not the sausage curbs. In hindsight, again, I think I could have taken the sausage curbs. On the exit then of the chicane to the line, 2:18.67. Lap number 1, and this was provisionally P1. Down into turn 1 again then for lap 2, straight back on it. There's no kind of cool down lap and then back on it. You're literally doing laps after laps in succession. We braked a little bit early for turn 1 there, and it did compromise our exit quite heavily, and therefore all of sector 1. But going into Eau Rouge then, we know it can be flat, given how much grip we had on the last lap, and we do it flat, and keeping it within the limits as well. And you can see just above my right hand, in the in-car dash is the Delta, and that was red after turn 1, went to green on the exit of Eau Rouge because we gained so much time up the hill. So we are currently up going into sector 2. Lecom, we had quite a scruffy Lecom on lap 1, taking it a bit tidier than we did on the first lap, and we get a decent exit on the right as well. So I think we must have gained a little bit of time there as well. Down into this right then, we did a pretty good job for the majority of sector 2 on the first lap, apart from Piff Paff and Lecom. So through No Name and the previous corner and Pulon, although it looks like we're doing okay and we're sort of nailing our braking points and apex, etc., I was losing time, and I was obviously pushing, but the tyre just dropped off so suddenly after, well, pretty much after the first half of lap 2. The grip just wasn't there anymore. It was so sudden, something I'd not experienced even in the British GT days, where the tyre just drops off. And I don't know if that was something due to my preparation of the tyre on the outlap or just the nature of the tyre, but other cars weren't really having that characteristic. They were sort of peaking lap 2, lap 3. I peaked on lap 1. So my quickest time at the end of the session was a 2:18.67, or actually it's a 2:18.652 officially on the timing board. And on the exit of Pulon on this lap, you saw that Delta go from green to red just above my right hand in the bottom right hand side webcam bit, and that's just because I ran out of grip. So that was a bit strange. I was a bit like, oh, this is a bit strange. I peaked very early here. Maybe lap 3 hopefully is going to have the grip to allow me to improve, because we saw lap 1 wasn't a perfect lap. It wasn't a great lap. It was messy in areas, and but naturally it's the first lap, it's not going to be perfect. So lap number 3 then, approaching turn 1, braking really late this time, about 95 metres down to first, not taking as much curb on the inside, good exit, and that was a very good turn 1. You can see we're green on the Delta, and approaching Eau Rouge then. On the last lap I did it flat, no problem, so I was like, okay, I'll do it flat again. What could possibly go wrong? You can see same line, no lift, and the car just washed out on the exit. And this was the lap where in sector 1 I was 3.5 tenths up. So we had a very good turn 1, and then we basically cut Eau Rouge, and that meant we were 3.5 tenths up going into turn 1. But I thought, you know what, I'll carry on with the lap just in case they don't pick that up on the track limits, and I might get away with it. So you got to think like that. You got to try and finish the lap even if you're up. But you can see there, the tyres, the rears just weren't having it, and I was pushing. Naturally, it's qualifying, and you can see there, I tried to carry a little bit more speed than I did on the previous lap through the Lecom chicane, because we lost time there even though we were driving the same as the first lap. The car just ran out of grip, and I could still do some respectable times, don't get me wrong, but that first lap, sector 2, even with mistakes, was just not achievable anymore. So yeah, at this point I'm kind of a little bit defeated, because I'm like, well, clearly the tyre is just not there anymore. Especially sector 2 around Spa, especially if you would have seen that in the Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. Sector 2 is everything at Spa. It's all about sector 2, and if you don't have the grip, if you don't have the downforce, if you don't have the balance right, then you're going to suffer. And it is what it is, though. So it's a 15-minute session. That means we've got another 2 laps, I think it is. So I did say to the team over the radio, look, the tyre's gone. It's pretty, you know, it's pretty obvious. I'm not going to get it back. What shall I do? And they said, right, stay out, burn the fuel. Obviously, don't stick it in the wall, but burn the fuel for the next driver when he gets in, so he's not running with an excessive amount of fuel. So it's a team effort at the end of the day. In every element of this week and race weekend, it's a complete team effort. So I'll try and improve. I'm not going to overdrive and do something silly, and I'll drive to the grip of the car. It's either going to be there or it's not, and let's face it, it's probably not going to be. So braking again at 100 metres and just being a bit too aggressive there. I think we jinked on the steering a bit too early, which engaged the ABS, and then we ran wide at turn 1. And we were actually up on the exit, and we only just went red on the Delta about halfway down this straight to Eau Rouge. So it wasn't... It just shows you how much time there was on that first lap. And if I knew the first lap was going to be the quickest one, I would have approached it completely differently. And I went with the approach, right, do the first lap, build up to it. Second lap should be decent, and then the third lap hopefully will be our best, will be the peak of the tyre, and that's when I'll have a bit of information underneath me to kind of drive well, and we'll have the grip for that as well. But it didn't pattern out that way, and that's sometimes that happens, I guess. In fact, if we look at the first lap, you know, you're talking probably a 10.5 at turn 1. Eau Rouge wasn't flat, that cost us 0.2. In the second sector, Le Combe chicane was very compromised because we had a bit of a tank slapper in the mid part of the chicane, so I'm guessing there was another 10.5 there. The bulk of sector 2 was pretty good. There's always half a tenth or a tenth. And then you got Piff Paff, which we had a really poor left-hander at Piff Paff. We failed to meet the apex, and then we suffered on the exit by getting the right-hand side wheels on the marbles. So there's probably another 10.5, 2 tenths there. The next couple of corners, so the right was okay, the first Stavolo, and then the second Stavolo we lifted when I don't think we actually needed to. So there was probably another tenth there because you carry that speed down the straight. Blanchimont was fine, it's a flat corner, and then the chicane, it looked very neat and tidy actually on the first lap, but in hindsight, I was watching some of the pros and even in some of the McLarens, I think you could get away with taking more curb, which would have saved, especially over one lap, it would have saved quite a bit of time. So probably another 10.5 there as well. So all in all, I did a 2:18.652. I think, honestly, there was a 2:17.7, 2:17.8, which is a big difference, you know. And it's not the end of the world, you know. I was happy with the job I did in the moment, given the circumstances, whatever. But it was clear to see, and even you guys would have seen it, you know. 2:17, a high 2:17 was more than possible. That would have been a lap where I would have come out and gone, fair play, you know. That's I've done what the car's capable of there. And you can see now we're on the 5th lap, and I'm sort of, yeah, I'm not mentally checked out from the session, but I'm not going to improve at this rate. The car has just not got the grip, and it's all about burning fuel for the teammates. So yeah, this session 2:18.652, that stacked me up 7th out of the, I think it was 45 cars or 42 cars in this session, and the pole in this session was a 2:18.147, so more than achievable, which that would have been great, especially on the first session back in a real car for 2 years. But it just, yeah, it is what it is. And overall, we, over the course of the 4 sessions with Manuel, Ethan and Nikolai, we averaged, I think it was a 2:18.2, and we gridded up P26 overall, P5 in Silver Cup. So, and there was, I think there was about 20 to 30 Silver Cup cars. So top McLaren as well on the whole grid. We were fairly happy with that. We all knew there was a bit more time in it, but you know, we were happy with that grid spot. And you can see the Lambo on an in lap, but we weren't improving anyway. I flashed him for the sake of flashing him, but if we were on a lap there, that would have been very frustrating. But yeah, it didn't really matter. And for many of you watching, you might remember watching the official stream, I did get a pit speeding penalty, and it was, I think it was 50.1 kilometers an hour in a 50. And if you're interested, that actually resulted in a €50 fine, which I haven't paid at the moment, but you know, maybe I shouldn't be saying that in the video, but I should pay that at some point. Anyway, that you'll see soon. I think this is the in-lap. You can see another slow car there on the inside of the entry to the chicane. Yes, this is the in-lap. I remember coming in after. Yeah. So I was pushing the entry slightly just to get an idea of what it felt like before the race, but I knew it was a qualifying, so I slowed down way before the line. You can see there. And I believe the pit speed limiter was calibrated just out, 0.1 out, which obviously alarmed the pit speed gun of the officials, and that resulted in a penalty, which was, yeah, it was a warning on the penalty system, but it was a €50 fine, so nothing to worry about there. And yeah, that was qualifying. So let me know your thoughts. You know, I'm sure many of you, especially sim racers out there, will recognise that there was more in the lap. I thought there was more laps to do it, but lap number 1 was it. If I nailed lap number 2, I'm sure I would have just improved. But lap number 1 in this session, for whatever reason, with my tyre preparation, was all I had to do the lap. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed another Spa 24-hour video. I've got a couple of other ones I could make. I will get back to some sim racing stuff very soon. I do appreciate the support on the channel as always. Do give it a thumbs up, sub to the channel. I'm glad how many of you have enjoyed the previous Spa 24-hour videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you all on the next one.